the game passes you by. And I just remember being a young guy. Kobe and I were riding on the bus. Um, we were going to the combine in Chicago, and we happened to land in the airport together. And we were sitting on the bus, and Kobe he was a young guy. He was 18 years old, and he admired me, looked up to me because he had watched me in college. Kobe and Rip played against each other, and now Rip is going to UConn. Kobe's getting drafted into the NBA. So we had this. He just had this this young excitement, this enthusiasm about him to come into the league and improve himself. So that's the Kobe I always remember whenever I played against him. We always competed, and obviously he wanted to always prove to people that he was better than me because I was drafted higher than him. But that's probably the source behind our rivalry. We had an intense rivalry when I played in Seattle, and then obviously playing in the finals in Boston. So it just seemed as though we had so much, going in. We came in together and we went in different directions. So it just seemed like there's a point where you could just sit down and, that 30 for 30 comes out and you get a chance to sit down with your family somewhere on the beach somewhere and just kind of conversate about, everything that you went through. And, there's things that he had to deal with. And in the year we beat him in 2008, and then when they beat us in 2010, like to be able to share those stories and the year in between, it never will come to fruition. And it was sad to me to know that conversation will never be had, because it wasn't like I had anything against him. I just loved competing against him. I wanted to beat him as much as he wanted to beat me. So it just was, you think about it, it's like, wow, we played a game for a living for our whole lives. And I think in a lot of situations, Max, when you're playing in a city like Boston and LA, has this huge rivalry, and to some extent you're made to hate.
CLNS History is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And but when you get removed from it, you realize, like, what is it that I really hate? I don't hate you. I don't dislike you for anything. We just played a game of basketball, and we won one against you, you won one against us. And, it was a great battle. And, you just kind of walk away from it and just appreciate the competition and the lessons learned. But you can't walk away from it with any, ill will or any anger, because somebody's got to get the best of somebody at some point, and then you look at, I always make the reference to Russell. I don't know what year he retired, but if you think about that, we can't get it back. It's just like, how we compare generations. You think about, people are like, well, who's the best? Like, which player is the best shooter, and who's the best dunker of all times, and who's this and that. And I was like, the numbers will lie to you, because the game changes. So the numbers never represent, you can't make a comparison through numbers. But even more so, it's just like a tennis shoe. Like, you remember the shoes you wore when you played.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that those shoes were terrible because you played them then. They meant something to you, and they might be your favorite shoes based on what they meant to you while you were growing up. Because for nostalgic purposes, I think everybody feels the way they do about that player, about that team, about that particular shoe, because it was something that meant something to them when they were growing up. And that, to me, you can't argue with a person over nostalgia. So, in present day, I think about things that mean something to me and how they've affected me growing up. And that's always going to be the case. And that's why I don't argue with people who have opinions about who they think the greatest player of all times was, or the greatest shooter. But to answer your second question, I had a golf event that I had to participate in, a shootout in Hawaii. And I flew from Miami to Phoenix, and I landed in Phoenix about 10:15, and I had to wait an hour. Actually, it was 30 minutes. So we were a little delayed, and I was getting on the plane. And I remember trying to rush and get some water for the plane, and didn't think anything of it. I just got on the plane, and we took off. It was about 11:15, and my gate literally was across the hall from my departure gate was across the hall from where I arrived, and so it was another 6 hours to Hawaii, from Phoenix, which I didn't know was that long, but it was longer than I expected. And then I was sitting, and I kind of looked over. We were about to land, and I was looking over at the water in Hawaii, and I kind of looked over the seat. The woman, she had turned the phone on, and I seen Kobe Bryant in her phone, and I didn't think anything of it other than something. Kobe must have said something. Because she sounded like she was having a conversation about Kobe Bryant, and then I turned my phone on, and then I was walking off the plane, and I had about 60 text messages, because I had been in the air for 6.5 hours, and this happened, within the first 30, 45 minutes of when I took off in Phoenix, because I started playing over my head when it happened, and you think of all the things you could have done, like called them. Like when I landed, I started looking at my phone, and my wife said, "I need you to call me as soon as your phone comes on," because she was nervous because I was flying longer than she had expected. So everybody called me, and then I was walking through the terminal in Kona, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, and it was it was tough because I was around a lot of people that wanted to have conversations just about basketball, about random stuff, and I was getting my bags, and I couldn't have a conversation. I couldn't talk. I was like, "I'm sorry, but I don't want to talk right now," because I was trying to kind of understand this. Was this real? Like, you hear stuff like this all the time. To see someone so young be removed from the earth is tough. He has so much life to live, and you start to think, wow, this could have been anybody. This could be us. You think about what your kids would go through, what they'd have to deal with, and I was like, I was in the wrong place. What better place to be in was Hawaii, because it's so beautiful, but then I was so far away from my family that I felt, I guess I'm supposed to be here for a reason, but it's tough to be here and be alone in my family because they're struggling with this as well.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. The exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.